Welcome everyone to the Mentor Movement podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Montigney, and today we're welcoming Kylee McGrane Zarnoch. Kylie is a dynamic social interpreter, creative, and advocate for positive change. As the founder and executive director of A Moment of Magic, she realized her vision of bringing joy and hope to children battling illness after the experience of having beloved family members hospitalized. Originally founded in her college dorm room in the Bronx, New York, the Moment of Inspiration has become an international movement. Kylie's first interpretal journey was at age 16 through the For Good project. She created and sold jewelry, predominantly bracelets, adorned with the inspirational praises to raise funds for anti-bullying charities. Her eternal spirit and compassionate vision propelled For Good project to significant heights for bringing anti-bullying education to elementary and middle schools in the Bronx, bringing her impactful change and empowerment. Before her transformational work with A Moment of Magic, she honored her media and publishing skills with CINN, a multifaceted conglomerates spanning insurance publishing, investment, and institutional advancement. Transitioning into fashion and storytelling, Kylie thrived as a versatile content creator, writer, and photographer at Styling On, a premier virtual storytelling service in New York City. In 2014, she became the founder and executive director of A Moment to Magic. Character visits, interactive experiences, and other important programs, she and her team transformed the lives of countless children and families, leaving an indelible mark of happiness and inspiration. Kylie's leadership and compassionate spirit propelled A Moment of Magic to international acclaim, solidifying her status as an award-winning social interpreter and advocate for pediatric health care. During this episode, we will discuss her organization, organ stories, mentorship stories, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Kylie. I'm literally so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, can you kind of take us back to the moment you decided to start A Moment of Magic? Someone we both grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, and you currently live in New York City. Like those are two completely different areas. Like with northeastern Pennsylvania, it's just a small town, and with New York, it's just a big city. Like, what made you kind of start A Moment of Magic?
So we started A Moment of Magic when I was in my college dorm room in New York City, but really the roots are so ingrained in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I was a high school student when my grandparents were both hospitalized. And growing up, my parents were what I consider real life superheroes. They were both public school teachers. So spending a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, they became my first friends. And when they were both hospitalized, I really saw firsthand the impact of hospitalization on their quality of life and their mental health. And I think so often when we have family members that get sick or are hospitalized or go through really hard situations, we all want to help. We all want to do something that makes it a little bit easier for other people. And sometimes when you're 16 or 17, it can feel like so much is out of your control. So I did what I could, which for me was sneaking in their favorite foods like McDonald's or desserts. I would decorate for the holidays. I brought in full-size Christmas trees, and I would go see them before any of my big events. So in high school, your big events are prom and formal. So I would literally go walk around the hospital in my big prom dress. And those were the moments where it didn't matter that my grandmother was hooked up to an IV. It didn't matter that we were surrounded by nurses and beeping machines and these loud lights and sounds and all of these other things. What mattered was we were together. So I ended up going to school in the Bronx, and I was away from my family. And within 2 weeks of each other, my grandparents, who were married for 65 years, passed away. And I remember trying to go through grief for the first time. And I was talking to my mom on the phone, and over a series of conversations, I was talking to her about how I felt like it was so unfair, and just trying to process this different type of grief. And my mom said something that really stuck with me, which was, those moments that we found so much comfort were the moments that we were really laughing despite all of the bad stuff that was happening. So a few months later, I was home in Wilkes-Barre, and it was around Christmas time, and my parents were flipping through the TV channels, and Frozen was on. And my mom just kind of made a passing comment that was like, "Oh, you kind of look like Elsa." And it just really sparked this idea for me. What if I replicated those moments that I had with my grandparents for what I consider to be the most vulnerable, which are children that are hospitalized? What if we could make their experience in the hospital a little less scary? So I went to the hospital the first time in this Elsa dress. I was there for almost 4 hours, and that was the day that my life completely changed.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Like, as someone who grew up with a grandmother in hospital, like when I was very young, like I can totally relate to that because when I was very young, she passed when I was like 10 or 11 years old. So I was like 8 years ago, so 2017, so about like 7 to 8 years ago. And I remember when I was that young and visiting my grandma in the hospital, it was like kind of 2 years before she passed away. I just remember like going to visit her during Thanksgiving or Christmas times or around that point because sometimes she wouldn't be at a holiday that was her personal favorite holiday or something that was kind of like a big, maybe tradition in our family. So it was like when you go visit a grandparent in a hospital, you're just like, why am I thinking about having her hook up to an IV or all these ventilators or something? Why can't I just bring stuff in for her to kind of get her mind off everything or to get my mind off everything? Because sometimes when you're visiting a hospital, all you think about is like sick people, like all you think about is maybe people are dying or something, and not a lot of people want to think about, especially if you're a patient. So oftentimes you want to bring some like maybe laughter, whether it's like maybe bring them some board games or bring them laughter. Like I know when I go to hospital these days, I'm like, well, like this is depressive. Like this is hard to see. And when you bring those memories to your grandparents, all they want with their grandchild or family member is to make themselves happy and to bring some comfort in. And I know with yourself, like being especially a teenager, a young kid, seeing a grandparent in a hospital can be heartbreaking. I know it was for me when I was very young, even though sometimes I didn't even realize it. So really having that positive attitude, especially if you're very young to bring your grandparents, and not a lot of people really take comfort in that. I definitely know if you are even such a young age, because usually grandparents, all what they wanted was comfort of their grandchildren. So that is something that a lot of people, oftentimes don't even realize when their grandparents are in hospital.
Absolutely.
Like, can you share some stories of or examples of how a moment of magic has kind of transformed the lives of children and families?
I think you really hit the nail on the head, right? When we think of hospitals, we often think of sickness, and really, hospitals are supposed to be a place for healing. And that's what we want to inspire when we're going into the hospitals. We want to create associations where kids can laugh, they can play, and they can just be kids. So that's really what we try to do. So there have been so many moments where we go into the hospital, we'll go see children that are getting treated for pediatric cancer, or even children that are in, the emergency room. And we'll be able to create moments where they're not focused on their illness, but are able to be provided with distraction and really have that mental health component added that support their overall treatment plan. So there have been experiences where we've gone in and we have seen kids that have literally gotten out of surgery the day before, full on run down the hallway to see their favorite character and collapse into their arms and give them a hug. We've had parents tell us that that experience was the first time they've seen their child smile in a long time. We've seen parents tell us that, that was the first time they heard their child laugh and act like a kid again. So there have been so many valuable moments along the way where we're able to create moments for kids to not be patients, but to be people. And that's really valuable.
I love it. Like how I know you kind of mentioned this a little bit before. Like how kind of people reacted to this. Because I know with like coming into hospitals with patients, whether it's kids or adults or even the elderly, everyone needs some positive in the hospital because it can be a depressive state of mind when they're in a hospital. Like how have people kind of reacted to that?
I think there are so many different demographics and groups that we've been able to work with. We're so lucky. I think parents so often are so grateful because it gives them a moment of respite where their kid is just allowed to be themselves. They are not a patient first, they're not, a cancer fighter first. They are that child first. For the kids, they're able to just focus on that moment. They don't have to worry about treatment or what's coming tomorrow or surgery. They're just allowed to be in that one singular moment. And most importantly, for us, one thing I didn't mention are all of our amazing volunteers. We work with college students across the country to actually do the work that we do. And for us, we get to see them become activated as leaders in their community. And
Mhm.
that really creates a domino effect because once they step into that leadership position, they're inspiring other acts of leadership and kindness. And the more leaders we get involved, the more kids we're able to impact. And because the kids are so central to that mission, it really creates this continuum of care for everyone involved.
Because when you are getting volunteers, whether they're college students, adults, or just people maybe in high school, like getting as much as maybe five people can help really anybody. I know when visiting people in a hospital, whether it's a cancer patient or whatever it may be, like the more people you impact in a hospital, the better. I know if you're having maybe a very young kid in a hospital, maybe with cancer, with treatment, or even having surgery, like all you can think about is like, oh, I'm in so much pain, like oh, it's all like negative thoughts. But when you have people come in, and maybe it's like maybe your favorite character, or just having maybe it's a service dog or some dogs coming in, or you can be anything, like having that like a little bit of a laugh during that
Yeah.
time where you might be having negative or depressive thoughts and you're having a rough time. Those moments can help you after maybe such a long time. And that's something that a lot of people can remember. And maybe parents will say, like, well, I haven't seen my kids laugh or smile in a long time since maybe a diagnosis they suffered maybe a couple months earlier. So having those moments, I know for me on this slide, that's one of my favorite things is, impacting other people, but it's like to see other people smile is that like it makes your heart like so happy and it makes you realize what you do is really meaningful.
Absolutely.
Like, what do you think a mentorship plays a role in people's lives? I know, like, especially if the work you do and maybe people going into hospitals and helping other people, it can be a variety of different ways, but what do you kind of see mentorship as?
I think mentorship is so important because mentors help make the path easier for the people that they are supporting. And I think, especially as young women, there are so many unique obstacles in leadership and starting a business and running a business that having a mentor that helps support you is so key in doing something successfully. So I look back on the times in my life, and starting a business at 20 was not something that I really set out to do. I didn't start this organization knowing that it was going to grow to be what it was. I started the organization because I wanted to help someone.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't for the mentors in my life, we would not have been as successful as we are. And I wouldn't be on this path to leadership that I hope to be on. So I think for me, mentors really help us grow into who we want to be. They help us overcome obstacles and hopefully make the path easier for the next set of leaders coming up.
Because when I started everything at 14 years old, I was like, well, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, because when I started out at 14, I'm 17 now, but when I started out, I didn't have a mentor. I just figured out what I was doing on my own. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And basically, I kind of like push myself the way into it without knowing what was going on or what to do or what I was doing specifically. But I love that you kind of had a mentor in your life that kind of helped you because I really didn't have like that sort of thing. All I was living out on was YouTube videos probably at that point in my life. So when having a mentor, whether it's maybe starting an organization, podcasting, or whatever you decide to do, mentorship can provide great way for that. Even though, a lot of people don't even have access to mentors in their certain career or even in high school. Now a lot of people have that mentorship because when you go into your career field or even a senior in high school, like you want to have mentors to kind of take you under their wing into maybe a career field that you want to go into or maybe want to learn more about. So, with the work you're doing, like it really helps set a different path for other people that want to get involved, especially with the work that you guys are going to hospitals and that sort of thing. Like that sort of thing, you really do need sometimes mentorship for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mentors are key.
They really are. Like to kind of transition, like how did your experiences with hospitalized family members kind of shape your vision for bringing joy and hope to children battling illnesses? I know you kind of, brought this up a little bit earlier, but kind of tell us more about that.
I think for us, one thing that we really focus on is being a mission centric organization. So, with every decision that we make in the organization, whether it's about a program we decide to run or how we decide to implement a program or budgetary decisions, everything is always focused around the mission. And for me, it's so personal because of how the organization started.
Mhm.
I come into my office every day and I have my pictures behind me of the people that inspired the organization. And I just make these decisions trying to make them proud. And I hope that they would be. I hope that one day, they see what I'm doing or I'm able to tell them about the work that we've done, inspired by the impact that they had on me and the community while they were here, and that I really do it in their honor.
I love it. Like, in case like people want to get involved with the Woman Magic, like how can listeners get involved or support your initiatives with the organization?
There are so many ways to get involved in the organization, whether you want to be a volunteer, maybe you want to become one of our character volunteers, maybe you want to go on a hospital visit as yourself, maybe you're great at social media or fundraising. Wherever you feel like you can support, there is a place for you in the organization. So the best thing to do is go to a momentofmagic.org. You can also check out all of our social media. It's Moment of Magic Foundation on Instagram. Getting involved, spreading the word, sharing our message really helps amplify what we're doing. And the more people that know about our work, the more people we're able to help. And that's really key.
I love it. I will make sure to put all that information, websites, and links below for everyone to check out and to learn
Thank
more.
you.
But the last thing I have to ask you is what does mentorship mean to you?
I think we talked about this a little bit, but for me, I think both being someone that has had the experience of having a mentor and wanting to be a mentor for someone else, I want to make the road a little bit easier because that's what my mentors have done for me. In moments that have been hard and challenging that I didn't know how to navigate, I knew it didn't matter what time of day it was, where in the world we were, I could pick up the phone and call with any type of crazy question and ask what I should do and guidance and advice. And I think that that's really important. And I think one of the hardest things as someone who wants to have a mentor or is the mentee is asking for help. So, my biggest piece of advice for someone in that position is don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for a mentor. Don't be afraid to ask for help or to ask for guidance because there are so many people out there that want to make that path easier.
And honestly, that was the exact answer I was probably going to say if someone asked me that question. I love everything you said. So I really appreciate all the work you're doing. Like everything you're doing is amazing. I love that you are working with different people, especially with children, to make a difference, even if they might be having a hard time. It's definitely making a difference. And I really appreciate all the work you were doing. And we definitely need to have a little coffee meeting or something to chat more about it.
Absolutely.
I would love to get involved one of these days.
That would be great. Thank you so much for having us on and for amplifying our story and for everything that you do. We so appreciate it.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Make sure you go check them out. I'll make sure to put all the links and everything below for you guys to check out and learn more how to get involved. Make sure to like, subscribe, review, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. And